We all have a pattern to our lives, but sometimes that pattern is a bit complicated. All You Zombies by Robert Heinlin. Read by Karl. 2217, Time Zone 5, Eastern. 7 November 1970, New York City. Pop's Place. I was polishing a brandy sniffer when the unmarried mother came in. I noted the time, 10:17 p.m., Zone 5, or Eastern Time, November 7th, 1970. Temporal agents always notice time and date. We must. The unmarried mother was a man 25 years old, no taller than I am, immature features, and a touchy temper. Didn't like his looks. I never had. But he was the lad I was here to recruit. He was my boy. I gave him my best barkeep smile. Maybe I'm too critical. He wasn't Swish. His nickname came from what he always said when some nosy type asked him his line. I'm an unmarried mother. If he felt less than murderous, he would add, unfortunately, the word. I write confession stories. If he felt nasty, he would wait for somebody to make something of it. He had the lethal style of infighting, like a female cop. One reason I wanted him. Not the only one. He had a load on, and his face showed he despised people more than usual. Secondly, I poured a double shot of old underwear and left the bottle. He drank, poured another. I wiped the bar top. How's the unmarried mother racket? His fingers tightened on the glass, and he seemed about to throw it at me. I felt for the sap under the bar. In temporal manipulation, you try to figure everything, but there are so many factors you should never take needless risks. I saw him relax that tiny amount they teach you to watch for in Bureau's training school. Sorry, I said. Just asking. How's business? Make it, how's the weather? He looked sour. Business is okay. I write 'em, they print 'em, I eat. I poured myself one, leaned toward him. Matter of fact, I said, you write a nice stick. I sampled a few. You have an amazingly sure touch with the woman's angle. It was a slip I had to risk. He never admitted what pen names he used. But he was bold enough to pick up on when they last. Woman's angle, he repeated with a snort. Yeah, I know the woman's angle. I should. So? I said doubtfully. Sisters? Nah, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Now, I answered mildly. Bartenders and psychiatrists learn that nothing is stranger than the truth. Why, Sonny, have you heard the stories I do? Will you make yourself rich? Incredible. You don't know what incredible means. So, nothing astonishes me. I've always heard worse. He snorted again. Want to bet the rest of the bottle? I'll bet a full bottle. I placed one on the bar. Well, I signaled my other bartender to handle the trade. We were at the far end, a single stool space I kept private by loading the bar top by it with jars of pickled eggs and other clutter. A few were at the other end watching the fights, and someone was playing the jukebox. Part of it was the bed where we were. Okay, he began. To start with, I'm a bastard. No distinction right here, I said. I mean it, he snapped. My parents weren't married. Still no distinction, I insisted. Neither were mine. When he stopped, gave her the first warm look I ever saw in him. You mean that? I do. 100% bastard. In fact, I added, no one in my family ever marries. All bastards. Don't try to top me. You're married, he pointed at my ring. Oh, that, I shouted to him. It just looks like a wedding ring. I wear it to keep women off. The ring is an antique I bought in 1985 from a fellow operative. He'd fetched it from a pre-Christian Crete. The worm Ouroboros, the worst thing that eats its own tail forever without end. A symbol of the great paradox. He barely glanced at it. If you're really a bastard, you know how I feel. When I was a little girl... Whoop, I said. Did you hear it correctly? Who's telling this story? When I was a little girl... Look, ever heard of Christine Jorgensen? Or Roberta Cowell? Sex change cases. You're trying to tell me... Don't interrupt me or smoke me, I won't talk. I was a foundling. Left in an orphanage in Cleveland in 1945 when I was a month old. When I was a little girl, I envied kids with parents. That's when I learned about sex. And believe me, Pop, you learn fast in an orphanage. I know. I made a solemn vow that any kid of mine would have both a pop and a mom. It kept me pure. Quite a feat in that vicinity. I had to learn to fight to manage it. Then I got older and realized I stood damn little chance of getting married. For the same reason I hadn't been adopted. He scowled. I was forced-faced and buck-toothed, flat-chested, and straight-haired. You don't look any worse than I do. Who cares how a barkeep looks? Or a writer? But people wanted to adopt little blue-eyed, golden-haired morons. Later on, the girls want bulging breasts, a cute face, and a "oh, you wonderful male" manner. He shrugged. I couldn't compete, so I decided to join the wenches. Hey? Women's Emergency National Corps, Hospitality and Entertainment Section, what they now call Space Angels. Auxiliary Nursing Group, Extraterrestrial Legions. I knew both terms once I had them chronized, although we now use a third name. It's an elite military service corps. Women's Hospitality Order, refortifying and encouraging spacemen. Vocabulary stiffed is the worst hurdle in time jumps. Do you know that service station once made a dispensary for petroleum fractions? Once on assignment in the Churchill era, a woman said to me, "Meet me at the service station next door," which is not what it sounds like. A service station, then, wouldn't have a bed in it. He went on. It was when they first admitted you can't send men into space for months and years and not relieve the tension. You remember how the wowzers screamed? That improved my chances. Volunteers were scarce. A gal had to be respectable, preferably virgin, though I trained her from scratch, above average mentally and stable emotionally. But most volunteers were old hookers or neurotics who would crack up 10 days off Earth. So I didn't need looks. They said to me they would fix my back teeth, put a wave in my hair, teach me to walk and dance and listen to a man pleasingly and everything else, plus training for the prime duties. They would even use plastic surgery if it would help. Nothing too good for our boys. Best yet, they made sure you didn't get pregnant during your enlistment. You're almost certain to marry at the end of your hitch. Same way today. Angels marry spacers. They talk the language. When I was 18, I was placed as a mother's helper. The family simply wanted a cheap servant, but I didn't mind as I couldn't enlist till I was 21. I did housework and went to night school, pretending to continue my high school typing and shorthand, but going to a charm class instead to better my chances for an enlistment. Then I met this city slicker with his $100 bills. He scowled. The no good actually did have a wad of $100 bills. Showed me one night, told me to help myself. But I didn't. I liked him. He was the first man I ever met who was nice to me without trying to take my pants off. I quit night school to see him oftener. It was the happiest time of my life. Then one night in the park my pants did come off. He stopped. I said, "And then?" And then nothing. Never saw him again. Walked me home and told me he loved me. Kissed me goodnight and never came back. He looked grim. If I could finish him, I'd kill him. Well, I sympathized. I know how you feel. But killing him, just for doing what comes naturally? Did you struggle? Huh? What's that got to do with it? Quite a bit. Maybe he deserves a couple of broken arms for running out on you, but he deserves worse than that. Wait till you hear. Somehow I can't everyone suspect you decided it was all for the best. Hadn't really loved him. Probably never would love anybody. Was more eager to join the wenches than ever. Wasn't disqualified. I didn't insist on versions. I cheered up. Wasn't until my skirts got tight that I realized. Pregnant? The bastard had me higher than a kite. Those skin splints I lived with ignored as long as I could work. Then kicked me out and the orphanage wouldn't take me back. I landed in a charity ward surrounded by other big bellies and trotted bedpans until my time came. One night I found myself on an operating table with a nurse saying, "Relax, now breathe deeply." I woke up in bed, numb from the chest down. My surgeon came in. "How do you feel?" he said cheerfully, like a mummy. "Naturally. You're wrapped like one and full of dope to keep you numb. You got well, but a cesarean isn't a hangnail." "Cesarean," I said. "Doc, did I lose the baby?" "Oh, no, your baby's fine." "Oh, boy or girl?" "Healthy little girl, 5 pounds 3 inches. I relaxed. It's something to have made a baby. Told myself I would go somewhere and tack Mrs. on my name and let the kid think her pap was dead. No orphanages for my kid. But the surgeon was talking. "Tell me, he avoided my name. Do you ever think your glandular setup was odd?" I said, "Huh? Of course not. What are you driving at?" He hesitated. "I'll give you this in one dose, and a hypo to let you sleep off your jitters. You'll have 'em." "Why?" I demanded. "Ever hear of that Scottish physician who was female until she was 35? Then had surgery and became legally and medically a man? Got married, all okay?" "What's that got to do with me?" "That's what I'm saying. You're a man." I tried to sit up. "What?" "Take it easy. When I opened you, I found a mess. I sent for the chief of surgery while I got the baby out. Then we had a consultation with you on the table and worked for hours to salvage what we could. You had two full sets of organs, both immature, but the female set well enough to develop you had a baby. They can never be of any use to you again. If we took them out and rearranged things, so you could develop properly as a man. Put a hand on me. Don't worry. You're young. We'll both readjust. We'll watch your glandular balance and make a fine young man out of you. I started to cry. What about my baby? Well, you can't nurse her. You haven't milk enough for a kitten. If I were you, I wouldn't see her. Put her up for adoption. No. He shrugged. Choice is yours. You're her mother. Well, her parent. But don't worry now. We'll get you well first. Next day, they let me see the kid, and I saw her daily, trying to get used to her. Never seen a brand new baby. No idea how awful they look. My daughter will look like an orange monkey. My feeling changed to cold determination to do right by her. But 4 weeks later, that didn't mean anything. Eh? She was snatched. Snatched? The unmarried mother almost knocked over the bottle you'd bet. Kidnapped. Stolen from the hospital nursery. Her breathed hard. How's that for taking the last thing a man's got to live for? A bad deal, I agreed. Let's probably another. No clues? Nothing the police could trace. Someone came to see me, claimed to be her uncle. While the nurse had her back turned, he walked out with her. Description? Just a man with a face-shaped face like yours and mine. He frowned. I think it was the baby's father. The nurse swore he was an older man, but he probably used makeup. Who else would swipe on my baby? Child's women pull such stunts. Whoever heard of a man doing it? What happened to you then? 11 more months of that grim place and 3 operations. In 4 months I started to grow a beard. Before I was out, I was shaving regularly. I never doubted that I was male. He grinned wryly. I was staring down nurses' necklines. Well, I said, seems to me you came through okay. Here you are, a normal man, making good money, no real troubles. The life of a female is not an easy one. He glared at me. A lot you know about it. So, ever heard the expression, a ruined woman? Years ago. Doesn't mean much today. I was as ruined as a woman could be. That bastard really ruined me. I was no longer a woman. I didn't know how to be a man. Takes getting used to, I suppose. You have no idea. I don't mean learning how to dress or not walking into the wrong restroom. I learned those in the hospital. But how could I live? What job could I get? Hell, I couldn't even drive a car. I didn't know a trade. I couldn't do manual labor. Too much scar tissue, too tender. I hated it for having ruined me for the wenches, too. But I didn't know how much until I tried to join the Space Corps instead. One look at my belly and I was marked unfit for military service. The medical officer spent time with me just from curiosity. He read about my case. So I changed my name and came to New York. I got by as a fry cook, then rented a typewriter and set myself up as a public stenographer. What a laugh. In 4 months I typed 4 letters in 1 manuscript. The manuscript was for real-life tales and a waste of paper, but the goof who wrote it sold it, which gave me an idea. I bought a stack of confession magazines and studied them. He looked cynical. Now you know how I get the authentic woman angle in an unmarried mother story. It's the only version I haven't sold. The true one. Do I win the bottle? I pushed it towards him. It was a set myself, but there was work to do. I said, Son, you still want to lay hands on that so-and-so? His eyes lit up, a feral gleam. Hold it, I said. You wouldn't kill him. He chuckled nastily. Try me. Take it easy. I know more about it than you think I do. I can help you. I know where he is. Reached across the bar. Where is he? I said softly, let go of my shirt, Sonny, or you'll land in the alley and I'll tell the cops you fainted. I showed him the sap. He let go. Sorry, but where is he? He looked at me. And how do you know so much? All in good time. There are records, hospital records, orphanage records, medical records. The matron of your orphanage was Mrs. Featheridge, right? She was followed by Mrs. Grunstein, right? Your name as a girl was Jane, right? I had him baffled and a bit scared. What's this? You trying to make trouble for me? No, indeed. Have your welfare at heart. I can put this character in your lap. You do to him as you see fit, and I guarantee you'll get away with it. But I don't think you'll kill him. You've been nuts to, and you aren't nuts. Not quite. He brushed it aside. Cut the noise. Where is he? I poured him a short one. He was drunk, but anger was offsetting it. Not so fast. I do something for you. You do something for me. What? You don't like your work? What would you say to high pay, steady work, Unlimited expense account, your own boss on a job, and lots of variety and adventure. He stared. I'd say, get those goddamn reindeer off my roof. Shove it, Pop, there's no such job. Okay, put it this way. I hand it to you, you settle with him, then try my job. If it's no I claim, well, I can't hold you. He was wavering. The last drink did it. When did you deliver him? He said thickly. If it's a deal, right now. He shoved out his hand. It's a deal. I dawned on my assistant to watch both ends, though at the time, 2300, started to duck through the gate onto the bar when the jukebox blurted out, I'm my own grandpa. The serviceman had orders to load it with old Americana and classics, but I couldn't stomach the music of 1970. But I hadn't known that tape was in it. I called out, shut that off. Give the customers the money back. I added, stillroom back in a minute, headed there with my unmarried mother following. I was down the passage away from the Johns, a steel door to which no one but my day manager and myself had a key. Inside was a door to an inner room to which only I had a key. I looked blurry around the windowless walls. Where's this? Right away. I opened the case, the only thing in the room. It was the USFF Coordinates Transformer Field Kit, Series 1992, Mod 2. A beauty, no moving parts. Weighs 23 kilos fully charged and shaped to pass as a suitcase. I had adjusted precisely earlier that day. All I had to do was shake out the metal net which limits the transformation field. Which I did. What's that? He demanded. Time machine, I said, and tossed the net over us. Hey, he yelled and stepped back. There's a technique to this. The net has to be thrown so the subject will instinctively stack back onto the metal mesh. Then you close the net with both you inside completely. Else you might leave sole shoals behind or a piece of wood or scoop up a slice of floor. But that's all the skill it takes. Some agents con their subject into the net. I tell the truth and use that other astonishment to flick the switch. Which I did. 10:30 V3 April 1963 Cleveland, Ohio Apex Building. Hey, Harry Peter, take this damn thing off. Sorry, I apologized, and did so. Stuffed the net into the case, closed it. You said you wanted to find him. But you said it was a time machine? I pointed out a window. Does it look like November? Or New York? While he was gawking at new buds and spring weather, I reopened the case, took out a packet of $100 bills, checked the numbers and signatures were compatible with 1963. The Temporary Bureau doesn't care how much you spend, it costs nothing, but they don't like unnecessary anachronisms. Too many mistakes and a general court-martial will exile you for a year in a nasty period, say 1974 when there's strict rationing and forced labor. I never make much of such mistakes, the money was okay. Turned around and said, what happened? He's here. Go inside and take him. He has expense money. I shoved at him and added, settle him, then I'll pick you up. $100 bills have a hypnotic effect on a person not used to them. He was thumbing them unbelievably as I eased him into the hall, locked him out. The next step was easy, a small shift in era. 1700 V10, March 1964, Cleveland Apex Building. There was a notice on the door saying my lease expired next week. Otherwise, the room looked as it had a moment before. Outside, trees were bare and snow threatened. I hurried, stopping only for a temporary morning in a coat, hat, and topcoat I'd left on around the least of the room. I hired a car and went to the hospital. It took 20 minutes to board the nursery attendant to the point where I could swipe the baby without being noticed. We went back to the Apex Building. The style setting was more involved as the building did not yet exist in 1945, but I had pre-calculated it. 0100 V20, September 1945, Cleveland Skyview Motel. Field kit, baby, and I arrived in a motel outside town. Earlier I had registered as Gregory Johnson, Warren, Ohio, so we arrived in a room with curtains closed, windows locked, and door bolted, and the room clear to allow for waiver as the machine hunts. You can get a nasty bruise from a chair where it shouldn't be. Not the chair, of course, but backlash from the field. No trouble. Jay was sleeping soundly. I carried her out, put her in a grocery box in the seat of a car I provided earlier, drove to the orphanage, put her on the doorsteps, drove 2 blocks to a service station, the petroleum producer sort, and phoned the orphanage. They drove back in time to see her taking the box inside. Kept going and abandoned the car in a motel, walked to it, and jumped forward to the Apex Building in 1963. 2200 V24, April 1963, Cleveland Apex Building. I'd cut the time rather fine. Temporal accuracy depends on span, except on return to zero. If I had it right, the inward discovery, out in the park this balmy spring night, is she wasn't quite as nice a girl as she thought. I grabbed a taxi to the home of those skinflints, had the hacky wait around the corners while I worked in shadows. Presently I spotted them down the street, arms around each other. He took her out on the porch and made a long job of kissing her tonight, longer than I'd thought. Then he went back in and came down the walk, turning away. I slid in step and hooked an arm in his. "That's all, son," I announced quietly. "I'm back to pick you up." "You?" he gasped and caught his breath. "Me. Now you know who he is. If you think it over, you'll know who you are. If you think hard enough, you'll figure out who the baby is, and who I am." He didn't answer. He was badly shaken. "It's a shock to have it provides you, and you can't risk seducing yourself." I took him to the apex building and we jumped again. 2300 VII 12 August 1985, Sub Rockies Base. I woke the duty sergeant, showed him my ID, told the sergeant to bed him down with a happy pill and recruit him in the morning. The sergeant looked sour, but rank was rank, regardless of era. He did what I said, thinking, no doubt, the next time we met, he might be the colonel and I the sergeant, which can happen in our corps. "What name?" he asked. I wrote it out. He raised his eyebrows. "Like so, eh? You just do your job, Sergeant." I turned to my companion. "Son, your troubles are over. You're about to start the best job a man ever held, and you do well. I know. But nothing. Get a night's sleep and look over the proposition. You'll like it." "That you will," agreed the sergeant. "Look at me, born in 1917, still round, still young, still enjoying life." I went back to the jump room and everything on pre-selected 0. 2301 V7, November 1970, New York City, Pop's place. I came on the store and carrying a flip of John Dewey to account for the minute I'd been gone. My assistant was arguing with the customer who'd been playing "I'm My Own Grandpa." I said, "Oh, let him play it, then unplug it." I was very tired. It was rough, but somebody has to do it. It's very hard to recruit anyone in the later years, since the mistake of 1972. Can you think of a better source than to pick people all felled up from where they are and give them well-paid, interesting, even though dangerous, work in a necessary cause? Everybody knows now why the Fizzle War of 1963 fizzled. The bomb with New York's number on it didn't go off. 100 other things didn't go as planned, all arranged by the likes of me. But not the mistake of 72. That one's not our fault and can't be undone. There's no paradox to resolve. The thing is or it isn't, now and forever. Amen. But there won't be another like it. An order dated 1992 takes precedence any year. I closed 5 minutes early, leaving a letter in the cash register telling my day manager I'm accepting his offer to so see my lawyer as I was leaving on a long vacation. The bureau might or might not pick up his payments, but they want things left tidy. I went to the back room of the storeroom and forward to 1993. 2200 VI 12 January 1993, Sub Rockies Annex HQ Temporal DOL. I checked in with the duty officer and went to my quarters, intending to sleep for a week. I had fetched the bottle, we bet. After all, I won it. Took a drink before I wrote my report. Tasted foul, and I wondered why I'd ever liked old underwear. But it was better than nothing. I don't like to be cold sober. I think too much. But I don't really hit the bottle either. Other people have snakes. I have people. I dictated my report. Further recruitment's all okayed by the Psych Bureau, counting my own, which I knew would be okayed. I was here, wasn't I? Then I take the request for assignment to operations. I was sick of recruiting. I dropped both in the slot and headed for bed. My eyes fell on the bylaws of time over my bed. Never did yesterday what should be done tomorrow. If at last you do succeed, never try again. A stitch in time saves 9 billion. A paradox may be paradoctored. It's earlier than you think. Ancestors are just people. Even Jove nods. They didn't inspire me the way they had when I was a recruit. 30 subjected years of time jumping wears you down. I undressed, and when I got down to the hide, I looked at my belly. A cesarean leaves a big scar, but I'm so hairy now I don't notice it until I look for it. Then I glanced at the ring on my finger. The snake that eats its own tail forever and ever. I know where I came from. Where did all you zombies come from? I felt a headache coming on, but a headache powder is one thing I don't take. I did once, and you all went away. So I crawled into bed and whistled out the light. You aren't really there at all. There isn't anybody but me, Jane, here alone in the dark. I miss you dreadfully. The end.